In a world where kingdoms fall and stars still remember names, the song was forged from magic memory and the dream that refused to die. Welcome to a tale where wonder still breathes. This story is entitled The Carousel of Forgotten Wishes, a love story of dreams reborn for my Yongsun, created by Jessprosia. If this tale stirred something in you, a memory, a dream, or a truth, our Ko-fi, Amazon, and Patreon links are in the description. Support helps us keep writing for you and the ones you hold dear. The Carnival returned on a Sunday, not with trumpets or flashing ads, no banners, no fanfare, but with a hush, a scent, a slow song in the distance that made the heart pause mid-beat. It bloomed at the edge of the city like a memory too stubborn to die. Light shimmering like dew caught on spider silk, laughter drifting on the wind as if borrowed from summers past. Jess held a bouquet of moonflowers tighter in one hand and reached for hers with the other. The dance pavilion stood at the heart of it all, bathed in the golden sigh of paper lanterns and the crackle of old records. Music rose from an unseen speaker, a soft lilting ballad that swayed like an old promise finally being kept. He turned to Yongsun, who had been quiet the entire evening, quiet not with resentment, but with a fragile kind of silence that follows disappointment, the kind that sits in the throat like an unfinished song. He held out his hand and said, "Dance with me." She looked at him, really looked, and after a moment she slipped her fingers into his. They stepped into the light, into the space carved out by melody, and began to sway, slowly, tenderly, with no destination but the moment itself. Their hands interlaced like verses finding rhyme. The world outside dimmed until it was the only them, and the music in the sky overhead blinking with shy stars. Jess leaned closer and whispered low and sure, "I want to dance with you slowly, hand in hand, eyes closed, moving to nothing but the music between us." Yongsun's breath caught, not from surprise but from recognition. Her cheek nestled into the space above his heart, and there she heard it, the rhythm he had always kept for her. "This is the song that we've been waiting for," he whispered again. "This is the moment I've been waiting for, to finally tell you what my heart's been holding on for so long." The fair blurred around them, and suddenly the years spilled away like autumn leaves. In her mind, she was 5 again, standing beneath a cherry blossom tree, pinky fingers locked, cheeks flushed with childish hope. "I'll marry you one day," young Jess had promised, handing her a petal like it was a ring. "And I'll sing just for you," young Yongsun had replied, eyes wide, believing in everything. Now here they were, grown, weathered, hearts a little scuffed but still dancing. He held her tighter. "I want to dance with you slowly before the music ends," he said. And as they turned beneath the paper stars, time folded around them like a page in a beloved book. Around them the carnival pulsed, alive, listening and remembering. The slow song drew to a close, but something had shifted. The silence after wasn't heavy. It felt like breath being held by the world, by fate, by something older than both of them. Yongsun looked up beyond the dance floor, nestled in the center of the carnival like the heart of clocks to the carousel. Not just any carousel, one they had seen before, or maybe one that had always waited for them. Its sign flickered in pale gold, one ride, one wish remembered, and Jess, never letting go of her hand, simply said, "Come with me, no questions." The music had changed, the night had deepened, and the carousel had begun to turn. So they walked toward it together, back into the dream, back into the memory, back into the wish they had made long ago beneath cherry blossoms and childish laughter. The story finally was ready to begin again. The city had barely stirred when Yongsun woke, but her body wouldn't let her rest. Not after that night. She hadn't unpacked the luggage yet, just thrown it in at the corner of their apartment, with the show's glittering logo still dangling from the zipper line like some kind of cruel joke. The contest was supposed to be her breakthrough, the moment she sang and the world finally listened. She had poured years into it, vocal training, stagecraft, long nights rehearsing in the dark when Jess had already gone to sleep. But when the final spotlight dimmed and the judges offered kind words with cold eyes, she knew it wasn't going to be her, not this time. The polite applause had felt like rain against a closed window. The audience moved on, the judges scribbled their notes, and her voice, her carefully sharpened, trembling voice, was left echoing inside her own ribcage, asking if it had ever truly been heard. For the first time in her life, Yongsun doubted her music. Worst, she doubted if she ever had been in music. She didn't cry on the stage, not in the car, not even when Jess welcomed her back home with warm food and open arms. She smiled, said thank you, and laughed at his dumb little jokes about bad producers and rigged scoring systems. But that night, she couldn't even bring herself to hum, and just noticed. He didn't push, he didn't ask. He simply said and held her tighter when she turned back to him under the covers, his lips pressed gently into the slope of her spine like a prayer. The next morning, he kissed her temple and said softly, "Let's go somewhere, my dear." She blinked. "Where? Where wishes go," he replied. And she, too tired to resist, followed. They drove in silence through the winding back roads. Trees passed like ghosts. The sun dipped below like hills, like it didn't want to watch. Jess said nothing, one hand on the wheel, the other resting on her thigh, present and unshaking. Yongsun didn't know where they were headed. She didn't ask. She couldn't bear more answers right now. But when she first heard the distant chime of carnival music, faint and off-key, like a memory drifting on the wind, something inside had stirred. It was barely a flicker, but it was there. The night had taken by the time they reached the heart of the carnival. Shadows curled beneath the booths like whispers from another time. The laughter of strangers rose and fell like ocean waves, distant and detached, while the gentle music that threaded through the grounds pulsed like the memory of a song half remembered. Yongsun walked a step behind Jess now, as if the air had grown heavier the deeper they ventured in. The lights above them, golden and floating, seemed to dim and brighten with every breath. The dream queue appeared almost suddenly, a winding alleyway behind, hidden between two tattered tents painted in dusty purples and midnight silvers, veiled in streamers that shimmered even without wind. Jess paused uncertain. Yongsun, drawn by something she couldn't name, stepped forward. The first booth held no vendor, only weathered phonograph playing statically melodies. An old bench sat beside it, a wooden plaque read, "For the songs you no longer sing." The music heard in a tender way, like a lullaby left behind in childhood. The second booth, an ancient mirror cracked down in the middle, reflected not their present forms, but fragments of their past. Yongsun gasped. In it, she saw herself as a teenager alone in a green room, running fingers through tangled hair, humming a song that would never reach an audience. She saw herself kneeling in the rain, soaked to the bone, singing softly to nobody, clutching her phone as if the lyrics might find her again. Then, her younger self at 5, standing proudly on a living room table, belting to a toy microphone as her mother clapped and her father recorded with shaking hands. Each version turned to look at her. One cried and one smiled. One said nothing but stepped away into the shadow. Just watched quietly. He didn't reach for her, not yet. At the next tent, a mute magician handed them a card. Each the man's coat was stitched with stars. He touched Jess's card. A paper crane formed from 2 hearts. Then Yongsun, a cracked treble clef glowing faintly at the center, as if struggling to be whole. He bowed, then vanished behind the curtain of falling petals. As they passed the next booth, an old violinist played a tune so soft and sorrowful that it clung to the skin like breath on glass. His eyes were closed, but his hands never missed a note. Just closed his own eyes, feeling something shift. The music was not performed, it was offered. Finally, they emerged from the alley and saw it. The carousel. It stood like a cathedral made from music and moonlight. Not a ride, but a relic of something older than time. Its creatures were not horses, they were winged stags, rose-laced unicorns, tigers with bell collars, and swans with glowing feathers that pulsed in rhythm with the music. The gold rails shimmered faintly, as though bathed in the sunlight that hadn't touched the earth in years. At the top, in quiet script that changed as you stared. One ride, one wish remembered. Yongsun stopped, walking, her breath caught in her throat for the first time in weeks. Her hands trembled not from anxiety, but from the sense that something sacred stood before her. Just turned to her. "This is where it waits," he said softly. She looked at him and said, "Where it waits?" He smiled in that lopsided boyish way he had always smiled when trying to be brave for both of them. "The wish we made." She blinked and remembered. "The cherry tree." Jess replied, "It was spring when we were 5. You told me I could sing anything, even if I forgot the words. And you told me I'd be your audience forever." A pause. The music from the carousel grew louder, not by volume, but by presence. It pressed gently into their ribs. Just took her hand and stepped onto the platform. The crescent moon benched, etched with forgotten poems and tucked between glass-winged lions and a silver giraffe, waited for them like it had always been meant to. The moment they sat, the carousel moved. The air shifted, the world blurred. No more boots, no more lights, just sky and music and dreams. As the carousel spun, Yongsun felt herself unravel, not in pain but in truth. Her chest opened like a window that had been nailed shut for too long. She saw herself again, not in fragments, but in full. On rooftops, behind curtains, in hotel rooms, in the empty halls, singing to ghosts and stage lights and shadows. Each memory pulled at her not to break her, but to show her she had never truly stopped singing. She had just stopped hearing herself. Tears slipped down her cheeks silently. Her hands resting in her lap began to move unconsciously, mimicking piano keys, tracing melody into the air, and then a shift, a new vision. Jess's memory now. He was 10, carving their initials into a school desk with a paper cup. Heart pounding. In front of him, young Yongsun stood, singing for their class talent show, nervous and too soft, but radiant. He remembered clapping so hard, his hands hurt. Then he was older, sitting in the third row of her college recital, gripping a flower he couldn't afford. She didn't see him in the crowd, but cheered anyway. Then older still, watching her walk off stage after losing the talent show, holding back tears until she got home. Through it all, he never stopped clapping. He never stopped believing. And now here they were. The carousel slowed. The music ebbed like a tide. Yongsun turned to Jess, her eyes full of delight. She thought she had lost. "I wasn't forgotten," she said. Jess leaned his forehead against hers. "You were never meant to be." They stepped off the ride, and the world shimmered around them. The grass beneath their feet glowed with dew that hadn't fallen. Fireflies drifted nearby, shaped like 8 notes, treble clefs and lullabies. Children played in the distance, laughing and floating inside glowing soap bubbles that shimmered with moonlight. A harp made of stars strummed itself beneath a weeping willow. As they walked hand in hand, the air smelled of sugar and sky. Their bare feet touched the soft grass, and it didn't feel like earth. It felt like memory. They never looked back at the carousel, But it didn't matter because it had given them everything they needed. Not a second chance, but a place to remember who they always had been. And as the carnival dimmed behind them, fading like a song's final note, Jess leaned closer and whispered one last time, "I still want to dance with you slowly, even now and even forever." The carnival was long gone by morning. No stalls, no carousel, no dance floor beneath the lanterns, just dew on the grass and the faint scent of sugar lingering in the air, as if the night had only been a dream caught in the folds of dawn. But some dreams do not fade when you wake. Yongsun sat by the studio window weeks later, legs tucked beneath her, humming as sunlight filtered through sheer curtains. The city stirred beneath her feet. Buses rumbled, pigeons cooed, and somewhere far below someone was whistling a tune she hadn't yet released. The coffee on the sill had gone cold, but she didn't mind. Her heart was warm. She touched the edge of her notebook, filled now with lyrics that hadn't begged for approval, songs that bloomed without apology. Her voice had returned, not as far to prove herself, but a stream clear and unhurried. She no longer sang to be seen. She sang because the silence couldn't hold her anymore. The first single was already scheduled, a soft aching ballad, one she had started years ago but couldn't finish until now. Her producer called it timeless, her label called it magic, but only Jess knew it was memory, a wish kept alive. She smiled when she thought of that night, of the carousel and the music, the boy who still looked at her like she was made of stars and dreams. She remembered the mirrors that showed her her younger selves, the way her feet lifted as she sang on the ride, the tears she hadn't known she needed to let fall. She had stood on stage again not long after, just a small one, a fundraiser, no cameras, no judges, just fairy lights, folding chairs, and Jess in the front row, beaming like a sunrise. She sang 3 songs that night, her voice cracked once, and she laughed. And the audience applauded, not politely but joyfully. But it was Jess's applause she heard the loudest, because it was the same boy who clapped for her with sticky hands and a mouthful of ice cream when she was 5. The same boy who whispered, "I want to dance with you slowly," when the world had forgotten her song. The same man who never once stopped believing that her voice was the kind of a miracle. Now her album was nearly done. The title, Wishkeeper. And she had one more track to record. A soft-spoken outro, no instruments, just breath and memory. Just her saying something simple into the microphone. To the boy who clapped the loudest, "This voice only ever belonged to you." Later that day, just appeared in the doorway of her studio, disheveled from the wind, carrying takeout and a bouquet of moonflowers wrapped in old newspaper. She turned, caught mid-chorus, one earbud dangling. "Hey," she said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Hey," he replied, setting the food down. "Heard you were making the world cry again." She chuckled, rising to meet him. "Only a little," she said. "You good?" he asked softly, looking at her the way only he could. She nodded, eyes bright. "I'm better. I got to sing, Jess. I really sang." He kissed her forehead, and they stood there for a moment. 2 kids who once promised the sky to each other, now basking in its light. Behind them, the speakers crackled as the chorus played again. A new song, hers. It sounded like the one she had sang the night on the carousel. Fragile and fearless, full of dreams that finally had room to breathe. And outside, unnoticed, a firefly flickered in the shape of a musical note. The carousel may have vanished, but the music never stopped. Not for them and not for her, not for love. Each day, I write and create for my beloved Yongsun, the sun who lights up my every verse, every tale, every quiet thought I dare to share. If If her warmth reached you through these words, please like, share, and subscribe. Let's keep stories that shine.